And coming in at 0.2% of the legacy metagame, Curses. Hello folks, Phil Gallagher, aka ThrabenU here for another Legacy video, and today Isaac gave me a dealer's choice donation deck list, so I was looking through the 5.0 deck list dumps trying to find something spicy, and boy did I find it. A few years back, Curses was a not embarrassing thing to play in Legacy. I'm never going to claim that it was the most optimal thing to be doing, but boy, it is fun. The deck is built around Curse of Misfortunes. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may search your library for a curse card that doesn't have the same name as a curse attached to enchanted player, put it onto the battlefield attached to that player, and then shuffle. So some of these were just tactically important to the format, removing small creatures. But others of them were absolutely massive haymakers. And if you managed to force a Curse of Misfortunes through, it would pretty much deterministically win you the game after a couple of turns. You start out by making creatures 1/1s, and then, by giving them -1/-1 if you need to kill some stuff that's there. Otherwise, you turn them all into 1/1s and make it so the enchanted player can't activate abilities that aren't mana abilities or loyalty abilities. And then if the 1/1s are still a problem, you can start making your opponent sacrifice them and eventually bleed them out. And sometimes you also had some things that made Brainstorm players kind of sad. Well, here is a 2025 Power Crept version of that, where we pick up some generically good cards like Sholdred, and we gain Necro Dominance as something kind of gross to do. We are not maxing out on this, so it's not like we are a Necro Dominance combo deck, but this is a fair adjacent way to reload, although it does become unfair if you just get Sholdred going. Because we have things like Oops All Spells and Reanimator running around in the format, we can just play our main deck Leyline of the Voids and have some combo potential with it, and even more combo potential in the sideboard. This deck did 5-0. I am worried that it is a little slow. A lot of this curve is starting at 4, and there's an important 5 drop that you need to resolve as well. We have a lot of mana in this deck. We are literally 30 mana sources in this deck. So hopefully we will be able to cast our stuff. Hopefully our opponents don't have the Brazen Borrower at exactly the right time to get rid of our Ensnaring Bridge. And let's have some fun today and maybe put some wins up on the board as well. You know, if you don't already own your Curse of Fool's Wisdom, maybe you can get it from toamagic.com. Promo code ThrabenU will save you 5% on your order, and you always get free shipping. If you're headed to Vegas or maybe MagicCon Atlanta later this year, check out this purple banner in person, and there will be some fun things under there. There's usually really good deals on things like HP or MP dual lands. With that being said, let's battle. So, the best thing this hand can do is play turn 3 Necro Dominance. That is not going to do it for us. Oh no. Wait, this might not be so bad. This is very awkward in that I probably need to imprint this curse. We can try to go Trinisphere into Karn, I guess. Turn 2 Trinisphere is okay. I might end up taking 3 damage on turn 2 to not be wastelandable on turn 1. Oh, fuck. My Trinisphere is not going to be very good here. I think I am going to save the 3 life in this specific matchup. I am not optimistic here. Do I have 3 bridges main deck and 1 sideboard? I do have 1 sideboard, so I in theory have access to Ensnaring Bridge. The problem is that Glaring Fleshraker has kind of changed the game for Eldrazi decks. It used to be that you could lock them out for the most part with an Ensnaring Bridge, but now that's just not the case anymore. You can just die to direct damage. Mana went to exile there. Do I want to play Trinisphere? I mean, it technically does stuff. I might play it just so that Karn can animate it a little bit down the line. This becomes awkward if I draw a piece of artifact or ritual mana here. But sometimes this could stop some weird Eye of Ugin go crazy turns. I would love to draw a soul land to be able to play Curse of Misfortunes. I think that's something that should largely just beat my opponent. Alright, there's a Glaring Fleshraker. My opponent does not get to follow it up, though, which is, I suppose, good. No. No. Stop it. That's what I thought. Alright, good cards that I cannot cast. In good news, Sowing Mycospawn is not in this format anymore, so I don't have to worry about just losing outright immediately. Oh boy, it is another Glaring Fleshraker. So trying to go the Ensnaring Bridge route is basically dead as an idea. I do not believe that my opponent should attack into my 3 open mana here. Bowmaster and Opposition Agent and cards of that nature are pretty bad for my opponent here if they try to push that 2 damage. I think this is just worth so much more if my opponent waits. Or they can just cast a second spell. It is a Lotus Petal. So when the stack clears, I am at 14 already. So much for this fucking Trinisphere stopping my opponent from casting multiple spells. That obviously changes the math on whether or not the Glaring Fleshraker should attack. I'm just fucking dead. Brutal. Fuck you, Trinisphere. You tried, but it wasn't good enough. I think Trinisphere is gonna go. Plague Engineer on Eldrazi spawns is fine. And then I probably want to board in some number of removal spells. Tithing Blade, I suppose, could stay a Karn tutor target. I don't think I am interested in Necrodominance here. My life total is very, very, very precious. I might just play a Lotus Petal here. That's in there as a Karn tutor target for when you need to jump to 5 mana for Curse of Misfortunes. So I leave myself with a Bridge, a One Ring, a Tithing Blade, and a Helm as well. I am unsure about Feed the Swarm. It is life loss, which is not great. I could see boarding out Curse of Fool's Wisdom. When my opponent is not cantripping very much, it's fine. But if my opponent is a One Ring build, it's pretty big payoff. That is a load of garbage. This is also pretty damn bad. It needs 2 mana to get to Curse of Misfortunes, and I don't have a reasonable play before that. I just don't have the second land to cast this. I will go to 5. Well, there is a clear plan in this 5-card hand. I am going to keep this, and we're going to do this to keep the Chrome Mox to catapult my mana forward. I just want to be able to get this Helm into play as quickly as possible. My opponent theoretically can be playing stuff like Thought-Knots here that ends up taking this Helm, which would be bad. Well, that is a card that in a lot of other circumstances I would want to still be in my deck, but this is fine here. So Glaring Fleshraker is scary here. Yeah, there it is. No immediate Lotus Petal to keep going. That's nice. Very nice. Play. Take damage. You get 1 turn. There are things that can stop this. My opponent could be playing a Pithing Needle style effect. They could be playing the Eldrazi with Kicker that can bounce creatures and get rid of artifacts and enchantments. Otherwise, they die. The opponent is going to have a decent amount of mana. If they have a second Glaring Fleshraker, they could maybe string some wild shit together that could result in me dying this turn. It is a Grim Monolith. But my opponent now does not have colored mana, so that means that I don't so much have to worry about Eldrazi Linebreaker coming down with haste and just wrecking me. At 14 already still. Oh fuck, it's a Devourer of Destiny. After casting another spell, I just lose my Leyline. Well, shit. I'm at 9. I am, like, dead on board, and I can't draw a Leyline and still have mana to activate it. Well, this is the out. Well, I can play Ancient Tomb and not tap it for life, actually. X equals 5. No creature. I'm dead. We put our opponent to the test, and they passed that test. GG's. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com. If you want to see upcoming sets, if you want to understand commander brackets, or if you just want an awesome place to store all, and I mean all, of your deck lists, Moxfield is the place. You can organize all of your decks by folders, and you can even change the views. You like visual, they've got that. You like text, they've got that. Check out my Moxfield Pro Field if you want to see all, and I mean all, of the decks that I've been cooking up. So opening hand here doesn't have a leyline to go with the helm and doesn't have anything that's just generically good to cast. It just has too much mana, not enough stuff to do with it. I think this hand is fine. The helm is probably the weak link here. I am terrified of Wasteland with this hand. Arid Mesa and pass. There's a decent chance, helm came back. There's a decent chance that this is a Wasteland deck. And if that happens, I think it's better to lose a color than to lose my soul land that helps me cast all my expensive cards. All right. So Trinisphere will probably be our test card this turn. It resolves, awesome. And if it doesn't resolve, so be it. It does not resolve. So I will get some choices in the not too distant future about, like, do I just jam Curse of Plateau? So I am guessing that we are a energy deck with, is it Mockingbird to copy energy creatures and Ocelot Pride? Curse of Misfortunes solos this matchup if it resolves, but it takes a little while to do its thing. I think I'm just going to eat the damage here and cast it. Is another daze, unfortunately. The Guide of Souls gets bigger. Ensnaring Bridge can help me out. Right now, I'm just going to kind of have a little bit of a hard time doing my stuff. There's an Ajani. That's something that might just naturally beat Ensnaring Bridge, which is unfortunate for me. Chrome Mox. That's fine. To do that, get a card out of hand, and we go 1-2, take damage, 4 total mana, Karn minus for the Lotus Petal, cast Lotus Petal, and assume that this now resolves, and just try to end up getting Hellbent, and then hopefully my opponent does not both flip this and get a red permanent. There's also some timelines where they have things like Prismatic Ending that can just answer Ensnaring Bridge. Where are these going? These are going at Karn. I am good with that. That is a disaster. It's a very, very, very bad draw because it's hard for me to get that out of my hand. So we are going to not tap Ancient Tomb for damage here. I'm going to put a Helm into play, and I'm just going to plus on that to turn it into a creature. That sat on the stack for a long time. I think that that means that my opponent does have a piece of interaction left over. Swords, it is swords. I gain a little life there. That's not nothing. That means that I can, in theory, tap an Ancient Tomb at some point later. This does kill my Karn, though. Down to 2. Amped Raptor. Unclear to me whether or not that should have happened pre-combat. Curse of Fool's Wisdom. That is going to pay for itself pretty quickly. That is going to pay for itself pretty quickly. Ow, ow. It's possible this last card is another Daze. Like, my opponent sat with the Who's What's It on the stack for a while. Note that this is whenever they draw a card, so this does include the draw step 1. There is a... Holy shit. There is a red permanent in play for Ajani. So Cruel Reality is actually a little bit problematic. We'll see whether or not I actually end up casting that. Yes. More stuff. It's another Guide of Souls. So my opponent now has 11 energy. If they want to do some burst damage, they could just like pay really hard with Guide of Souls here on the same target, and then save X1 creatures that can attack next turn. This is very bad. I think I am going to lose. Chrome Mox is probably my best draw here. Sheoldred's pretty great, but probably too late. Oh, my opponent doesn't have that much energy. Okay. I don't have to take damage here to play Sheoldred. So now When my opponent draws a card, both of these trigger. They are at 14 life, despite gaining a relatively absurd... Oh, fuck. Uh, this is going to get absurd. I need to get Cruel Reality out of my hand. So they only have enough energy to do it once this turn. That flies, obviously. I can't block it, but then Ocelot Pride does its thing, and then this shit happens. L the Profane. So, dead if my opponent is smart. I unfortunately do need to take 4 here. So if they just sacrifice a cat and transform their Planeswalker, they've got me. Oh shit, they didn't. Yes, let's fucking go. Alright. Alright. Play into our outs here. Opponent says, I'm not sure why I didn't sack a cat. Yep. Me either. Swords on my creature. Leyline of the Void. Not gonna do it. Now my opponent knows what's up, unfortunately. So I am going to die. But there's a Leyline. So Cruel Reality, they sacrifice a cat. And this thing happens. I am at 11. So this happens now. And the 0 ability domes me. I am at 3. And I die to that ability next turn. Dark Ritual is not going to do it. That is a shame. We played to our outs, did not get rewarded. Okay, I'm gonna assume that Necrodominance is not great here. I'm gonna assume that Trinisphere is not great. And we're just gonna try to bring in a pile of removal. These are gonna be fine here. Do I just get rid of Cruel Reality? I might need to get rid of Cruel Reality for the exact reasons that we saw in that game. It is just a good way to lose a game that I am otherwise pretty likely to win. This is fine. I wouldn't hate finding a way to squeeze the Lotus Petal into the deck. Yes, this is fine. I think Curse of Death's Hold is just a generically fine castable card for this matchup. Like, I think just playing that as a regular spell with no additional support on turn 2 is perfectly fine. I mean, Daze would obviously be pretty annoying, but hopefully that doesn't happen. I could wait a turn here and just take this out around Daze, or just give my opponent a Daze target here. I don't hate that either. The Daze will probably get something this game. Yep, that's fine. So the Tundra comes back. I will take 1. I will use a Dark Ritual this turn and drop a Curse. Brainstorm is fine. Unfortunately, that is a Force of Will. So I now need something to go with Helm of Obedience or just some other reasonable top deck here. Ensnaring Bridge. Okay. Dark Ritual. I'm going to do Ensnaring Bridge first. And I will just get Hellbent here. So I have stopped short-term damage. That's the good news. Bad news is I handily lost last time after, like, getting Ensnaring Bridge into play. I am Hellbent this time, though. That's the good news. I do unfortunately just need to play this as to not take a bunch of damage. And I'll just pass the turn here. I'm not going to just activate Helm and, like, maybe get a 1-drop for my troubles. We're just gonna yield to all these energy generating abilities. I don't have very many instants in this deck. It is another Guide of Souls. And it's got all the energy in the world, nothing to spend it on. But there be cats over there. Well, let's see if we win. Leyline? We do. Ensnaring Bridge did its thing. Is Karn slow here? Like, is this a high tempo enough matchup that I remove 4 Karns and I just bring in Lotus Petal, Elm, Tithing Blade, and Ensnaring Bridge? That slightly lowers my curve for Ensnaring Bridge purposes, but means that I have 1 fewer tutors for it. I think I am okay with that. The Tithing Blade is a little awkward versus Ajani in Ensnaring Bridge situations, though. I'm going to say that this is fine. Plague Engineer plus Curse is pretty respectable. I don't do anything on turn 1 immediately, but I think that is probably going to be the norm for my deck. Plateau and Ajani. Does the back make 2/1 cats? Aw, that's weird. I think I'm into it. This might just be Force of Will bait or Daze bait anyway. It's just awkward if my opponent follows up with a Swords specifically. I will name cat, and we'll see if this falls apart immediately. Amped Raptor, hitting Goblin Bombardment. My opponent now controls red permanents. Makes my life a little harder here. So my opponent can deal 1 damage to Plague Engineer and then throw Amped Raptor at Plague Engineer to kill it. They didn't. Love that for me. I kill Amped Raptor next turn with Curse of Death's Hold. My opponent didn't see the line this turn. They might see the line next turn. I think I am just going to... Oh, what if this? I can kill Amped Raptor, attack the Planeswalker for 2, and just try to keep the Planeswalker ability from actually killing stuff, or I can take out the Goblin Bombardment. That is maybe scary long term. Next turn, I could 5 mana do this. I don't really want to remove Amped Raptor if I can just do it this way next turn, but it sure does feel good to do this. All right, so they're going to throw the Amped Raptor at my face, meaning I don't actually lose the life. So it was actually just worse to do that. I took 1 instead of 2. So send at the Planeswalker. There is a new Ajani. He's going to create a cat that dies immediately. My opponent pluses and puts a counter on that Ajani. That kind of naturally plays around my Curse of Death's Hold. Sheoldred attacking this is pretty good. I think I am going to go ahead and throw this, despite Daze being very good against it. Yep. So I will send in at the Planeswalker. This is a 1/2. So I'll just chip away at this loyalty. This is just fully a fight over this middle ability. And as my opponent sticks another creature, this is problematic. All right, they are throwing, which I don't know if I understand. Okay. So then they are throwing again. So they're just doing this in a way that leaves them with a cat token at the end of turn. But this, I mean, I will absolutely destroy target creature or planeswalker. So I will just take that out and then hopefully stabilize the board with a Sheoldred next turn. The Goblin Bombardment is a very long-term problem, though, that I will also need to solve. Ocelot Pride, sure. I'll take some damage. Gets me to 7 mana this turn. That's fine. So let's go Dark Ritual and throw down a Sheoldred. And then I'm mostly just casting this to get it out of my hand. It's not doing anything right now. The opponent seems to be responding to it. Consigned to memory. Yeah, that's fine. So Sheoldred is going to start doing Sheoldred stuff. I am in the most danger from something like a Guide of Souls coming down, was going to be what I was about to say. Oh, so that gets to be a second. Oh, they're going second Ocelot Pride. That means Goblin Bombardment is a problem. My opponent can, if they want, kill this Sheoldred immediately before I gain any life. They do not. I'm at 10. I believe that I'm fully dead here. I'm going to give my opponent chances to make mistakes and send this in, see if they are willing to multi-block it. Nope. In which case I am just going to die to combat damage plus fling. I think even if I play Sheoldred out, especially since some of this is just going to fly. GG's. We had some opportunities to take advantage of some of my opponent's missteps, but I don't know that my deck is objectively powerful enough to actually capitalize on those windows. All right. Opening hand here doesn't really accomplish anything. I think I'm going to go ahead and mulligan this one. Second hand just plays a Helm of Obedience with nothing else to go with it. That's not keepable. The third hand will do something. So this is 5. So Ancient Tomb Chrome Mox, imprint a black card, play Trinisphere, keep Karn as the follow-up is probably the way that I would play that out. Let's see what my opponent's got going for them. theater from my opponent. We could be playing against a Reanimator deck. It'll be what I am thinking about as of right now. That other Chrome Mox is pretty bad for me. That's not really what I want to see. I'm going to do a weird one here. I'm going to go ahead and play out this Chrome Mox with no target in respect of trying to get Hellbent very, very long term or Ensnaring Bridge, in case this is actually something like a Rakdos aggro deck or a Grixis control deck that is going to just smack me with little creatures like Snapcaster Mage. Immediately punished by drawing a triple black pip card that I cannot remove from my hand. I don't regret my decision, but it did not work out. Opponent can pick up another Surveil land. I expect a blue-black one here. I'm wrong. Jund? Okay, no. It's just 4 Reanimator splash cards. Alright, cool. Opponent does not have a functional deck right now. I also do not have a functional deck right now, so we're staring at each other. Okay, yeah. Well, this is what I was playing towards earlier. So I have a bridge in play. I have a Karn. Does Karn get me graveyard hate in this deck? Do I have something like a Tormod script in the board? No. Opponent is willing to pack it in there. They might not have very good outs game 1 to Ensnaring Bridge, especially if, they're not casting spells. Underground Mortuary could mean a couple of different things here. It could mean a sideboard juke into Witherbloom Apprentice. It could also mean that there's enough green cards in the deck to play something like Force of Vigor. I'm just going to kind of passively keep both of those things in mind. I think I'm going to get Necro Dominance out of here, play another Trinisphere. I want to be able to tutor for this. I want this to make me faster. I probably play a little bit of removal. I could try to get rid of something like Curse of Fool's Wisdom. It's particularly good versus Grizzlebrand and mediocre versus things like Archon of Cruelty and Atraxa. Roll Reality, in theory, should win me the match if I get the curses going anyway. That can get me 2 outs to sideboard juke creatures or Witherbloom Apprentice combo. That seems reasonable, and Karn still has a handful of goodies to tutor for. Karn's a little slow on the draw. I think I'm just going to accept that as being fine. Spell the Profane on 1 gets me to 5 mana immediately. This is a fine hand that is on the draw versus a 7 of Reanimator. I think I give myself a hand or 2 to look for a leyline. Maybe not like this. Maybe not like this. The 5 is not good. The 5 is only mana, no real castable stuff. Now we're in the leyline trap of just, this is actually insane as a 4-card hand. This is very, very, very strong. That's great. So we've got a leyline. We have access to 3 mana. This is hopefully fine. Opponent has... all right, that was a very, very fast choice. Anyway, I was just going to talk about how there's a very good chance that taking my only black source there is more powerful than taking the Trinisphere. But I don't know the contents of their hands to know whether or not that's truly true. Okay. The owner of each creature card revealed this way with the lowest mana value puts onto the battlefield. Okay. That's Grizzlebrand. Okay. Stronghold Gambit is some degree of risky versus my deck, right? I guess I have creatures. Not that many of them, though. Opponent is at 3 and is discarding. They drew up to 16 cards and didn't find anything else to do. This should be nice information, though. Note that because my opponent left me with Fellmire, I can now top deck a removal spell for Grizzlebrand, and life is fine. Lotus Petal. Alright, opponent has Spoils of the Vault. That's good to know about. I'm gonna play on here. I think there is a non-zero chance that I still win this game. My opponent is probably 80+% to win the game here. But I could win. I take 7. My opponent goes back to 10. The Trinisphere might not allow them to just draw another 7 cards here and vomit out stuff. I mean, they could just hit another Stronghold Gambit and do gross things. Okay, yeah, so there is Witherbloom Apprentice, Chain of Smog combo, and Oils of the Vault is meant to help out with that. Got it. I am now going to assume that if my opponent untaps, I end up dying to Magecraft stuff. Because if I just take 9 and my opponent casts a spell, any spell the following turn just beats me. I can't tap Ancient Tomb anymore. That's okay. So if I want to juke my opponent's juke, I could put Plague Engineer into my deck to make me better versus Stronghold Gambit. But a real card has to come out to make that happen. Assuming that I want to keep access to Leyline Helm. I could just try to make my deck faster and remove Karn. That puts Bridge in. That puts Tithing Blade, Feed the Swarm in, and maybe Helm. Or one more Feed the Swarm. Let's go Interaction here. Feed the Swarm is better versus Witherbloom than the big creatures. Like, losing a bunch to take out a Grizzlebrand or a Traxa isn't that great here. I can turn 1 Trinisphere with this hand, but then I don't play Magic after that, so I don't think this is viable. This is mid. I think I will be keeping it. I think I am keeping functional mana here over something like an extra Leyline. I'm going to keep Fell the Profane to potentially be a spell. This is not like the early Trinisphere that I would like to be leading on here. Witherbloom Apprentice is in play. I need to dodge Chain of Smog for 1 turn, and then I remove that. Second land drop. Ball Therapy. Trigger. They named Fell the Profane. Rough. They have Dark Ritual, Chain of Smog. If so, I am dead to that. Yep. I am dead. GG. Perfectly normal opening hand here. Nope. Well, okay. So I can keep this and hemorrhage a ton of life, or I can just try to play a more fair Ensnaring Bridge game that goes somewhere later on, which I think is what I'm going to do. When to use the Ensnaring Bridge is kind of weird. If I keep it in hand, it can get Thought Seized. If I just fire it off now, sometimes it gets countered. I think I'm just going to slow my roll on it and hope for the best. My body is ready for Swamp Thoughtseize. Sandstone Needle. Opponent is doing unfair stuff. The unfair stuff probably doesn't happen immediately, but if it does, I want this Ensnaring Bridge in play. Right meow. So I am expecting that my opponent is trying to cascade into cascade cards, into cascade cards, into cascade cards, and so on and so forth. Helm of Obedience here is just like perfectly reasonable as a spell. Dark Ritual. Dark Ritual. Sheoldred. I am now hellbent for Ensnaring Bridge purposes. And hopefully I just bleed my opponent to death via Sheoldred. My opponent might have things like Let the Galaxy Burn that can take out my Sheoldred, though. I might end up needing to find another win condition. Here we go. It is the Creative Technique. So my opponent is going to give me a copy of this. I will absolutely cast a more other Ensnaring Bridge. And now my opponent gets 2 spells. Let's pop this out. Alright, so they are now going to cascade. They're going to get into a Tybalt's Trickery, which they are going to use to counter one of their own spells. And then they get a Maelstrom Wanderer, and this whole cascade thing is going to go on and on for a little while. Eventually, I'm going to lose my creatures. They have Boseijus that can answer Ensnaring Bridges, but they will need to answer multiple Ensnaring Bridges. So we'll see how this plays out. Another Tybalt's Trickery. 4 Throes of Chaos again. That gets into Violent Outburst, which we are now out of fuel for. So this is the last thing here. Oh, we found another Creative Technique. We're going again. Necro Dominance. I think I say no to that. It's weird because like it can make me skip my draw step, which is kind of okay. As weird as that is to say. Yeah, there's the call forth the Tempest. That gets rid of my Sholdred, but we're still cascading. Opponent can like make some creatures and stuff. But again, I think we're in a they are passing the turn line until they naturally draw a Boseiju. We had an Apex Devastator. I'm going to give you relevant updates at this point. I think my opponent is going to be cycling through cards for a little while. It's been a minute or two now. My opponent has demonstrated another creative technique. I have picked up a Curse of Misfortunes. They have still not really done anything that meaningfully impacts the board. But there sure are a shit ton of Cascade triggers on the stack. And for that, I salute them. The stack has emptied. My opponent has a pile of creatures that cannot attack. 20 cards remaining in their library. I have a Curse of Misfortunes that is going to fucking ruin their lives. Oh, they take an extra turn. Yeah, sure, you can have an extra turn. Dwarven Ruins. Well done. Curse of Misfortunes trigger. Does this shut off? Yeah, it does. This is going to shut off Boseiju. Get cursed. Nice 1/1s. I'm just going to cast a Dark Ritual and pass the turn. I'm not even going to worry about activating this Helm. I will just kill my opponent with Curse of Misfortunes. Another Dwarven Ruins. And my opponent resigns to their fate. Humorously, the card that actually dealt the killing blow was one that they gave to me. I did not cast this card with my own mana. I got that off of Demonstrate. And this is part of the reason why this strategy is very, very risky, because occasionally your opponent will flip some hate piece or a meddling mage or something like that that you will really, really struggle with beating. My Karns are just too slow for this matchup. I want this Ensnaring Bridge and this Trinisphere just to be in deck so I could flip them or cast them quickly. I think the same is true of this Helm. I don't know that most of the rest of this stuff actually matters all that much. My Necro Dominance is not particularly good here. It's hard to cast. I think I am going to switch in a black card that is easier to get out of my hand. Yeah, I think I am into that. Like, Necro Dominance can do some really cool things with a Sholdred, assuming that you have time to set up something like that, but I just don't think we have that time in this matchup. So this is turn 2 Curse of Misfortunes, and that means on my turn 3, I turn their creatures into 1/1s. That's not bad. It's a little slow. I think I'm willing to try keeping it. Sure. Sholdred. Sholdred is cool. I think I don't want to do that turn 1, though. I think I just want Curse turn 2. Yeah. We're going to go Bam. We will Plague Engineer. How about the Elementals are smaller? And now it is just a question of, like, does my opponent have a turn 2 with an untapped land? They do not. Great. We dodged the first bullet. We could still very easily die. This is a slow hand. I'm going to do Curse. I'm not even going to attack my opponent. I'm going to leave this back as a blocker on the off chance that my opponent does not produce lethal. Here we go. Are we dead? No, it is a Boseiju. Getting a swamp. Never didn't have it. So let's deploy a Curse again. And I think by the same logic as last time, I just leave Plague Engineer back. My opponent's life total does not matter. Like, this chip damage is irrelevant if I just do things that my opponent can't beat. I think there is a decent chance that I just die, though. Here we go. It is demonstrated. I hit a new Curse, and we'll see how wild my opponent gets. It's going to be pretty wild. Luckily, that Maelstrom Wanderer is small, right? That's good. So then this goes into the Tybalt's Trickery, which got an Ingot Chewer. That's a miss. But now we know that my opponent has more outs to the Ensnaring Bridges and Trinispheres of the world. There's a Tali. I'll lose Plague Engineer to call forth the Tempest. That's going to cascade some more. And I think, again, I'm going to start giving you relevant updates. I'm pretty close to just dead unless my opponent messes up and, like, keeps demonstrating. Yeah, they didn't. Another Violent Outburst, which will be another Tybalt's Trickery. Alright, and the stack does clear, but unfortunately, I needed one turn too many here. Now I'm at negative 13 life. So the game that we're on the play, we'd like to get Trinisphere or Ensnaring Bridge into play on turn 1 or turn 2, preferably. Okay, my opening hand is fine. I think we're going to go play one Chrome Mox out, Dark Ritual, Trinisphere. I'll keep one Chrome Mox as a mana source for a little bit later, but I think that's it. Helm is not really what I am looking for here. Ensnaring Bridge means that I now have 2 problem cards in play that need to eat Boseiju or Evoke Artifact Dude Ingot Chewer. There's the first Ingot Chewer. I imagine takes out Trinisphere. That's not really the best draw in the world. I'll play it. My opponent's creatures don't do me a lot of good while this Ensnaring Bridge exists. Mossfire Valley? Alright, we're apparently going. I think my opponent is just going to try to do the thing and figure out the other creature later. Sure. So now at the point where this Ensnaring Bridge leaves play, I am effectively dead. Hopefully we find another one, and my opponent does not have a Boseiju here. That is tragic. They just clicked on Boseiju and put it into play rather than use the channel ability. Yep. That's rough. Hello, Trinisphere, my old friend. Opponent, in theory, has a pile of Boseijus and Ingot Chewers in their deck to get through this situation. And now they just need to get the bridge out of play because the Emrakul can beat me. They don't need to combo off, so they don't need to remove A and B here. And drop. Something's happening. Opponent's going down a bunch of life. They're just going to hardcast some big idiot. It is a Tully. Throes of Chaos and Chrome Mox. Opponent says no. I draw another Ensnaring Bridge. Don't mind if I do. I think there's a good chance we end up coming back after my opponent punted, but we are not out of the weeds yet. I save that for casting a Curse of Misfortunes. I'm just going to have 6 through my opponent's turns. If they do something that removes my stuff, it doesn't matter whether or not I activate Helm. Crystal Vein. That's Throes of Chaos. This feels problematic due to the Trinisphere. Like, a lot of times this just cascades into a 3-mana thing. Yeah, so they went into a Violent Outburst, so they just dealt themselves 2 points of damage with Ancient Tomb for no real benefit. But I sure am drawing copies of Helm of Obedience, though. We're chilling. Opponent just has lands. Oh, we're going again. That is Throne of Chaos with Retrace or Violent Outburst. Now they can do a Tybalt's Trickery if they would like. This line is going to require them sacrificing both copies of Crystal Vein. What did they just reveal? Looks like another Tybalt's Trickery. Okay. This might be better as mana than as a Death Toucher. Although it's kind of funny to play it out given that my opponent is at 4. Backside of this is just indestructible. My opponent's not really doing that. It just like trades with a creature that isn't doing anything though. Yeah, I'm gonna say that this is mana. Alright, yep, no play for my opponent. Hey, this is why I saved that bonus City of Traders a few minutes ago. So 2 mana, City, Curse. That wins me the game on my next turn, I think. I think once I have Overwhelming Splendor, my opponent can't win anymore. Well, we won. We did not win for noble and good reasons. We won because my opponent misclicked and or didn't know how the card worked on Magic Online. Given how badly today is going, we'll take it. But that's a win that never ever happens in real paper play. GG's. Okay, my opening hand for this final round here frankly does not have enough mana. This second one ain't great either. This is very awkward. Black, 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 plus City of Traders. Necrodominance, Ensnaring Bridge, also not the best combo in the world. I'm going to keep this and hope for some good variance in my favor. My opponent essentially needs to be playing fair, or needs to be playing something that just loses to an Ensnaring Bridge. Thoughtseize is a little ambiguous as an opener. I lost the Necro. That's great. This is the card that I am excited about with this hand. And we're just going to stick it on turn 1. I am into that. If my opponent is something like a mono black aggro deck, they don't really remove an Ensnaring Bridge. Alt. Oh. Rip my Ensnaring Bridge. It's not going to do anything here. We're probably playing against a black storm deck. Yeah. So as far as the variance goes, when we kept this hand, we wanted to be playing against a fair creature deck. And we are not, obviously. Opponent is going for Necro Dominance here. It is, I suppose, possible for them to die still. Oh, is this a fair? This is a fair Necro Dominance. I can't dump a Sheoldred into play. I could draw Trinisphere. Helm is not gonna do it. So let's see if I die. Urza's Saga. Ensnaring Bridge checks that well enough. Now remember, opponent is skipping their draw step, so they do need to pay life for cards. Wishclaw Talisman. Seems good. Will they pay more life? They will. Opponent is at 5 and discards down to 5 cards. I am going to play Helm of Obedience this turn so that I could draw Leyline of the Void and have 5 mana for Leyline Helm next turn. Let's see if I die. The Wishclaw Talisman makes that somewhat likely. But some of that does depend on how much good stuff is already in my opponent's hand. Dark Ritual. Activate Wishclaw. We've got mana for something like a Beseech the Mirror or a Sheoldred here. Up to 5 mana. Okay, yeah, I was expecting 4. Are we on Gaia's Will? We are on Gaia's Will. So now my opponent is going to replay that mana from the graveyard and then presumably Beseech for lethal. Storm is 6. Cabal Ritual Storm is 7. Yeah, I was just doing the math on that. So Cabal Ritual 7, Beseech the Mirror 8, Tendrils 9. Not dead. Opponent did not count out their turn properly. They could have waited one more turn, paid a little more life. What would I have drawn? I would have drawn Sheoldred, which humorously, they don't have a draw step, so they would not have lost life from the Sheoldred. We'll take it. Presumably, though, I find something to do with Wishclaw Talisman that results in my opponent dying there, though, like Karn. So, I want bonus Trinisphere. I want Lotus Petal. The Swarm could destroy an Urza's Saga. How am I dealing with Urza's Saga? I think I just keep some Ensnaring Bridges. My life total is relatively safe regarding Necrodominance. I still might need Curse of Death's Hold plus Overwhelming Splendor to fully lock out Urza's Saga tokens and any sideboard jukes. I think I'm going down 2 Necros for these 2 cards. I'll keep the last Necro. I think that's better than just like Plague Engineer as a 2/2 attacker. I think. This is a tough hand. This is turn 1 Trinisphere, but if my opponent Thoughtseizes me, I have nothing. I think I will accept that. It's possible I should just mulligan to a Leyline here for the game that I am on the draw. Yep, alright. I lose the Trinisphere. Hopefully my opponent can't go off super quickly. They don't have that many cards. I don't want to see more mana there. I'll just play my mana and pass. So that is an Urza's Saga. In a fair capacity, that's pretty darn good right now. Looks like I lose my Helm of Obedience. And then I am hoping to draw the half of my deck that is not mana. We're literally 50-50 on mana versus non-mana here. I believe that is immediately worth my Lotus Petal to preserve City of Traders for later in the game. So the combo portion of the deck is solved. Now we need to solve the Urza's Saga if my opponent has another land here. And yes, it has to be a land. All right, I will pass the turn. So now my opponent is going to lose this land. They can convert it into a different mana source. They did not float a mana prior to doing that, though. They pick up a Chrome Mox. And because they didn't float a mana, they can't even possibly cast a spell this turn. Curse of Misfortunes. Don't mind if I do. That's an ideal top deck there. Those are very good back-to-back turns for us. And that is good enough for the concession. We got 2 wins with this? That's fantastic. All right, admittedly, one of those wins was from a Boseiju whoopsie, though, so there's that. All right. Overall thoughts on the deck list. Not fantastic. When your central card is a 5-mana card that requires multiple turns of untapping to win the game afterwards, that might be a sign that you are working just a little bit too hard for Legacy standards. Something that I say a lot is you can do anything you want in Legacy as long as it is powerful. And I am not sure that what we are doing today fits the power level of Legacy anymore. A few years back, this was in meme territory, but could reasonably steal games. And now I think the format is just fast enough that unless you are getting paired against decks that are folding to Leyline, this is just not going to cut it. Ensnaring Bridge is not as reliable as it used to be. Karn is very, very slow unless the artifact shutting off ability just happens to shut down your opponent. And the Daze style cards can be devastating when you sacrifice a City of Traders or use a Dark Ritual to power out a 5-drop, and your opponent just answers it for free for a single card. As far as the main deck goes, I like the Necro Dominance the least. We never assembled Necro Dominance plus Sheoldred at the same time in this league. It's a little awkward that we can't use a powerful tutor like Beseech the Mirror here. The triple black is a little rough with 8 soul lands, and Curse of Misfortunes is an expensive card, which doesn't help us for Beseech the Mirror purposes. So it was fun trying to wiggle my butt and work for some wins, but I think it is an uphill battle playing something like this in Legacy, unfortunately. I think this is perfectly fine to bring to an FNM or to, sleeve up, proxy up, whatever, and play with your buddies while having a beer or whatever. I think this deck is great for those purposes, but I would not register in a tournament for prizes with this, at least not real prizes. All right, folks, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the day. If you have any thoughts about what could have gone in this deck instead, maybe in the place of Necro Dominance, let me know down in the comments. All right, have a great rest of the day. See ya.